All right, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're watching from. Welcome back to the Everything CHES channel. And I know it's been a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, since I uploaded the video. And I know a couple of people also messaged me, and I made a promise that we will review a set of responsibility questions this week. So expect that to be out tomorrow. The exam date is getting closer. The pressure is also mounting. I am also feeling the pressure, and but I believe everybody's gonna do well. I clearly at this point believe guys are going to do well. We're gonna shatter the scoreboard. We're gonna do just amazing, okay? So in the spirit of preparation, tonight, I am going to not necessarily answer questions. However, we have about 4 questions here, but the burden tonight is to break down objectives and evaluation. And if you've paid enough attention to past CHES questions, you will understand why I am doing this. So in the past CHES questions, we have probably had over 10 to 15 questions that has to do with objectives and evaluation combined. Now that's a huge chunk of the exam. 10 questions on a certain area, and evaluation and our objectives is not limited to just one part of the responsibilities. And that's why it even becomes trickier. So I believe there are some things we all need to understand, not just on the basis of answering questions, but on the basis of understanding these words and these components and how they work. So tonight, I will do my very best to shed some light on objectives and evaluation. Common questions, about 10 to 15. I absolutely believe it's necessary and important that we do that. All right. So let's get straight into it. And by the way, I am repping my school tonight, Fresno State. I've got the water board, so I'm absolutely repping my school tonight. Okay, so understanding objectives. What are objectives? Objectives concretely measure a program's successes or shortcomings, and to show how a program is translating an organization's mission, vision, and values into action. That sounds like a lot. In simple terms, objectives are written goals, what your organization or what your program, you as an health education specialist, what your intervention wants to accomplish. That is the objective. So if you as an health education specialist, you are given the opportunity to conduct a tobacco intervention program. One of your objectives would be by the end of so period, we will see a reduction in the number of high school students that are vaping. That is an objective. So that becomes something you are looking forward to in your program, all right? So it is something that should translate into action. Now, with that being said, objectives comes in different categories. And this is the most important part, because most of the CHES questions, they are not going to ask you for what is an objective. Don't get me wrong, that might be a question because we've seen questions such as what are mission statements, right? However, the questions about objectives really has to do with the types of objectives, not necessarily the definition of objectives. All right. So objectives can be SMART, number one. However, we in an intervention program broadly classify objectives into three main aspects. It can either be an impact objective, number one. It can also be a process objective, number two. And the last one, it can be an outcome objective. All right. I'm not going to dwell so much on SMART objective. However, I'm just going to try to explain what it is in 1 minute. When we say an objective is SMART, let me quickly say it is an acronym. Okay? It is an acronym. So an objective is SMART. It means, number one, it is specific. It is measurable, as all objectives should be. Every single objective in an intervention program must be measurable. If it is not measurable, it is not an objective. It is that simple. If what you have written down as your goals for a program cannot be measured, has no unit of measurement, has no unit of analysis, then it is definitely not an objective. Let's get that out of the way. So again, the A, your objective should be achievable. Your objective, oh, excuse me. All right, so SMART, your objective has to be specific, measurable, achievable. Does anyone want to remind me of the R now? What do we call the R? Okay, so many things flowing in my brain. If I do remember, I put it down. So of course, the T is time bound, all right? So the T has to be time bound. So this is how you recognize your SMART objective. However, that is not where we're going to tonight, but, okay, I have also seen questions on SMART objectives. So when you say a question on SMART objectives, you must identify these 5 acronyms in that objective. If the objective doesn't cover the spread of those 5 acronyms, then it is not SMART enough, all right? So you may have to look at other options. All right? So let's jump into the main types of objectives. A process objective. A process objective is the activities and tasks that lead up to the goal accomplishment. So just as the name implies, I love to say a process objective is a build-up objective. It's an objective that allows you to build right from the scratch. So it's more like you are going from a place of needs assessment and you're ascending into the main objectives of the program. So one of those things you want to consider here, we said activities and tasks, right? So a process objective might be, oh, we are going to be employing certified health education specialists. We are going to have some outdoor events. Example here is prior to the program, we are going to contact some gynecologists, physicians, right? That is a process objective, a build up, all right, to the overall outcome of your program. So it might be a number of presentations made. It can also be staff performance and resources. Now, resources can be in terms of person, can be fiscal resources, can be financial, can be all kinds of resources, can even be your stakeholders, all right? Your resources can also be your priority population. So this is something that has to do with the build-up, all right? The build-up, this is the beginning part. You can also call it the phase one objective, the phase one objective, all right? So the next one is the impact objective. The impact objective is what should naturally come up after the process objective. And here I have put down that this is the second level in the hierarchy of objective. So the first hierarchy will be a process objective. And of course, the second hierarchy will be impact objective, all right? All right, so when we talk about impact objective, it can be categorized into three phases. And this is the important part. This is important because a CHES question may not ask you, quote unquote, to identify an impact objective, but might ask you to identify a type of impact objective. So this is extremely important to understand. So please stay with me. Three types. And the three types are: number one, learning. Number two, behavioral. Number three, environmental. I repeat again, three types of impact objectives: learning impact objective, behavioral impact objective, and the last one is the environmental impact objective. Now, what are these types of objectives? And I'm gonna make my screen to be a little bit messy so we can really understand what these things are, okay? What these things are. So stay with me. A learning objective is what seeks to understand, or is a written objective that seeks to understand the knowledge attainment, the skill acquisition of the participants of a program. So, a good example of a learning objective, if we are in a tobacco intervention program, would be participants will be able to identify the dangers of secondhand tobacco smoking. All right. So basically what is happening here with this written goal or objective is that I am saying participants will learn something. They will have a knowledge shift in something. And overall, impact objective is an immediate observable event. So a knowledge shift is something you can easily understand, right? It's something you can quickly point to. Oh, I just gained something in this intervention. That is a learning objective. That you just gained something, you just gained an extra knowledge, you just gained an extra insight, all right? That becomes a learning impact objective, all right? So the second type of impact objective is behavioral. So when we say behavioral, it means that a change in character, a change in the things you do. Now, there is an important question that has been asked in CHES over the years, and that question is this: people who learn the most, how is it done? Is it by listening? Is it by acting? Or is it by listening and acting? The right answer is always listening and acting, because listening and acting is what propels a behavioral change. Remember, an impact objective measures the change in a person. A process objective measures activities and resources. Difference. So, a behavioral change, for example, in an HIV intervention program, might be individuals who never use condoms in sexual intercourse suddenly have had a change and are using condoms. All right, that becomes a behavioral change because the usage of condom is a behavioral pattern. Okay, smoking of vapes is a behavioral pattern, it's habitual. So when things like that change, it is behavioral. And of course, environmental, for example, has to do with a larger society. So environmental is not limited to one person, it's not limited to two persons, it talks about a community. So you can call this a social or a community level type of objective. So when we say environmental, we could say there is a reduction in the air pollution over Santa Clara County after so people went for an intervention program. It's on a larger scale, all right? So to put, so again, the three types: learning, which talks about a change in knowledge, a change in insight; behavioral, a change in attitude, a change in how you do things, a change in habits. And of course, environmental represents a change in the larger society, in the larger population. So let's say, for example, let's make a comparative objective now. Santa Clara County has bike lanes all over the places, and Alameda County doesn't. And after a certain intervention, you begin to see bicycle lanes in Alameda County. That becomes an environmental change, and obviously it's an environmental impact objective, all right? So these are the three main categories, and they are absolutely important for this exam, okay? Absolutely important. All right, let's go on. Just like the things we just explained, impact objectives, which could be learning, behavioral, environmental, changing awareness and knowledge, changing behavior, and change in environment. You can look this up. If you do want me to share the PowerPoint, you can indicate in the comment section. I will shoot you an email and we'll pick it up from there. Okay, the last one, outcome objectives. What is an outcome objective? Just as the name implies, outcome, the overall or the ultimate goal. What are we eventually here for? Why are we sitting in this education class? What is the outcome of what we are doing? So, an outcome objective is specific, measurable statements created by the educator. They represent change in the overall health status. Now, everywhere you see an outcome objective, and please listen carefully, this is one of the tricks for the exam that will not fail you, okay? Everywhere you are asked to identify an outcome objective, the question must indicate mortality rate, morbidity rate, and must talk about the overall health status. That is how you identify an outcome objective. An outcome objective is always about, have we reduced the numbers, the disease rate? Have we reduced the death rate? And have we improved the overall health status? An outcome objective doesn't speak about behavior change, doesn't speak about environmental change, doesn't speak about process and activities. It only deals with, or it is indicated, the indices is built on mortality rates, morbidity rate, and the overall health status of the participating community. Very important. Very, very important. You can see an example. Within 3 years, osteoporosis related fractures will decrease by 25%. Osteoporosis is a disease, all right? It's a disease. It is overall for the residents of the whole county, all right? So it talks about an improvement in their health status, an improvement in the disease rate, which eventually, if not controlled, can lead to morbidity. So the 3 indices are well represented. So for an objective to be an outcome objective, the 3 indices of mortality, morbidity, and overall health status must be well represented. Must be well represented. All right. Now, let's see. Let's take a quick look at 2 questions quickly. And I'm sorry, I already included the answer, so let's see. Okay. Question number 1, it's the answer, either way. Question number 1. Behavioral and learning objectives may also be referred to as what? And these are CHES questions. I didn't manufacture these questions. They are past CHES questions. So, behavioral and learning objectives also may be referred to as what? Of course, I said earlier, the only objective that has different components is the impact, behavioral, learning, and environmental. So we can also throw into this question that behavioral, learning, and environmental objectives also may be referred to as what? That will be impact objectives. Process objective doesn't have different parts, okay? Outcome objective doesn't have different parts. It only has indices. And of course, we never talked about formative objective, all right? So that's something right there. So, second question. When writing an objective for a worksite wellness program, the health education specialist wishes to measure any morbidity, mortality, and health status change that occurred as a result of the interventions. Which type of objective should be written? Remember, I told you when you see a question like this, you ask yourself, what are the key parts? What are the key components, right? So one of the key components is we are writing an objective, all right? Hallelujah. We're writing an objective. So that's obvious, okay? We're writing an objective. The other one is, what is your objective trying to measure? Now, if your objective is measuring, the participants will stop using a vaping instrument or something, that would be an impact measuring behavior, right? However, what we are measuring here is morbidity, number 1. Let me see. Is morbidity, number 1. Number 2, mortality, okay? Mortality. And number 3, health status change. Number 3, health status change. So, and like I said before, these are the 3 indices that an outcome objective measures. So this is like the overall thing. In public health are the overall things, all of the things we do: tuberculosis intervention, HIV intervention, tobacco intervention, diabetes intervention, nosocomial infection interventions, right? All of these interventions, they are geared at only one thing: to reduce morbidity, mortality, and improve the health status. And that will always be an outcome objective. That will always be an outcome objective. All right. So moving up quickly to the next part of this presentation, that is evaluation. All right. And that will be evaluation. So everybody take a minute on my screen to read the definition if you wish. All right. So, what is evaluation? Evaluation is a systematic method for collecting, analyzing, and using data to examine the effectiveness and efficiency of programs. And as importantly, why do we do it? Is to contribute to continuous program improvement. So let me start by saying this. For those of us that are taking the CHES exam, okay? Evaluation can be conducted right from the very first area of responsibility to the seventh or to the last area of responsibility. You can evaluate an implementation plan. You can evaluate communications strategy. You can evaluate advocacy. Your leadership and management can be evaluated. Research can be evaluated. Planning can also be evaluated. So all of the area of responsibilities in for the health education specialist can be evaluated. And this is what makes evaluation questions a little bit trickier, because each of these competencies or responsibilities have different methods for evaluating them. All right? That is important. It is important to lay that foundation so that we just don't throw around the word evaluation, evaluation, and evaluation. All right? It's not just a single word. It's a word that can be used in different phases or in different competency level. Now, with that being said, let's move on. Evaluation can either be one of the following. So when you have a program, or you have an intervention, or you have an implementation plan, or you have an advocacy plan, or you've been asked to evaluate leadership, all right? What are the types that you should be looking at? The first one, process of evaluation. I was about to say objective. Process evaluation, impact evaluation, formative evaluation, summative evaluation, and outcome evaluation. 5 types. And unfortunately, the CHES questions have been well represented on these 5 types. So don't be surprised if you go into the exam and you have 5 different questions that the answers has to be each one of these. Don't be surprised. Like I told you before, in a CHES question, you might as well have up to 10 questions on objectives and evaluations, all right? Objectives and evaluation. So let's get into this. Let me see. Is a question I want us to come back to. Yes, we'll come back to this question. All right, come back to this. Okay, what is a process evaluation? Like we explained in the process objective, a process evaluation is a combination of measures that occurs as a program is implemented. Take note. Keyword, implemented. Keyword, implemented. It is done to assure or improve the quality of performance or delivery. It is conducted after an implementation. Now, I will try to be as very slow as I can, because more often than not, students are unable to make a distinction between process and formative evaluation, and that has been a major question for the CHES board organizers. Listen carefully. A process evaluation, now remember that an evaluation is what you do after a program or intervention, the first phases has been conducted. You can only evaluate what has been conducted. You can only evaluate what has been done, what is in motion, all right? An objective is not in motion. An evaluation only measures what is in motion. Let's get that out of the way. So, a process evaluation is what you are going to be doing after you have done implementation. Remember, it is needs assessment, planning, then implementation. So the only place that your process evaluation comes in, and of course process, it's like the build-up. You want to now evaluate the build-up of a program. Was it done right? Does it match fidelity? Now, this is that word is another key word, fidelity, which means a program is doing what the objective said it would do. All right? What the objective said it would do. So, in a process evaluation, it is really done after implementation, but in actual sense, it is done to measure fidelity. That is why you do a process evaluation. All right? So it can only be conducted after an implementation. So we are not necessarily conducting a process evaluation to go back and change something. No, we are now doing it to actually know if you as an health education specialist followed the objectives of the program. That is the major talking point here. And I have highlighted the word after. It is important to me. Please, a process evaluation is only done after an implementation has taken place. All right? Next one. A formative evaluation. What is a formative evaluation? So, a formative evaluation is a process that an health education specialist uses to check an ongoing program. I'm not going to write process so we don't get confused. Uses to check an ongoing program. So, for instance, you have a tobacco intervention program for teenagers in the Fresno County currently going on. All right? It's in the process of implementation. You have started it. You are doing it right now. So a process evaluation, a formative evaluation is what you want to conduct to know if you are actually doing it right. If you are actually doing it right. A process evaluation, on the other hand, is what you do to know if you have done it right. And I'm going to indicate that here. All right? If you are doing it right versus if you have done it right, okay? If you are doing it right versus if you have done it right. And that is a process versus formative evaluation. All right? So it's something you do through the implementation phase. You do it before the implementation is over. You basically do it before the implementation is over. A formative evaluation is done before the implementation is over, so that you can make corrections and you can make changes. However, if you use a process evaluation, you necessarily cannot make changes because implementation must have been completed before a process evaluation comes in. All right, that is important. Now, the difference is a formative evaluation is done before and in implementation. Let me indicate that here, before and in implementation, while a process evaluation is only done after. It's only done after. And that's a good talking point. That's a good talking point. All right. Next one, moving up the ladder. 1, 2, go. Impact evaluation. I think this is very similar to impact objectives, okay? Very, very similar to impact objectives. In an impact evaluation, you are dealing with immediate and observable effects of a program. The immediate and observable effect of a program. What is the instant effect, the instant impact, the instant change your evaluation is causing? All right? What can you see now? It is a now thing. It is this moment, this time, this period kind of evaluation. Okay? The impact evaluation leads to desired outcomes. Knowledge, skills, behavioral change, and attitude are the things we are looking forward to. This is what we are looking forward to evaluate. We want to evaluate the knowledge shift, the skills gained, the behavioral change, and the attitude change. This is what we do in impact evaluation, okay? Now, the last but not the least, not the last, second to the last, outcome evaluation, very similar. The ultimate goal, the product, or the policy. So for example, in advocacy, if you are evaluating advocacy, what you are trying to evaluate is the policy. So policy applies here to advocacy. All right, so don't be confused. It applies here to advocacy. Product here could apply to maybe communication component. Of course, goals can apply to implementation and those things. However, you are still looking, when you talk about outcome evaluation, you are looking for the 3 indices, which are mortality rate, morbidity rate, and health status change. I personally believe that the last two are fairly easy, and the first two are extremely tricky if you don't understand how to make a difference, okay? How to set the difference. All right, so for outcome, you are evaluating what is the mortality rate, what is the morbidity rate, what is the health status change in your program. All right, so again, this is the last one, summative evaluation. All right, summative evaluation. A summative evaluation measures, is a measure or judgment that enable the investigator to conclude impact and outcome evaluations. It helps you to conclude, it helps you to summarize it, to summarize that finally, this is what we have done. All right. So in this case, a summative evaluation will seek to either give your evaluation a pass mark or a fail mark, if that makes sense. Okay. It includes activities taken to create a judgment on the performance. So basically, you are judging the performance of a program. You have summarized the whole thing, and now you are measuring it, okay, in alignment with fidelity. Was it worth it? Did it do what it says it's going to do? You pass a judgment on it. All right. So it focuses on assessing training goals and specific objective. So in this case, it may not necessarily be focusing on mobility and all of those things. It's focused more on training goals, all right? On training goals. So let's look at a few questions as we quietly move to the end of evaluations. Question number 1. By 2024, volunteers will distribute informational fact sheets to at least 50% of the program objectives of the program participants. This intent is an example of which type of objective, all right? So remember we said a process objective. Okay, for example, here, we are not measuring any kind of knowledge shift or behavioral change, so it cannot be impact. Remember, I said outcome, you have to look at 3 indices, morbidity, mortality, and health status. None of that has been mentioned. Summative, like we said, we are giving a judgment on goals, right? We are passing a judgment on goals. We are evaluating. So right here, we are not doing that. We are not doing that. And obviously, there is nothing like a summative objective, please, all right? You must also have the knowledge of the components that the question is asking you for. So of course, the right answer here is a process objective. This is the process of the intervention. The processes talks about resources, talks about activities and tasks. So a task here is distribution of materials, very important. So the task that is identified is distribution of materials. Okay, next question. A health education specialist wants to be sure that participants in an 8-weekly health ED program have acquired the fundamental cooking skills. Again, I say to you, my dear friends, in taking this exam, understand what the key words are. Understand what the key terminologies are, okay? So, cooking skills prior to the end of the sessions. Which one of the following evaluations would the health education specialist implement to assess skill acquisition? So the question is asking you, how do you assess skill acquisition? That is a key component, number one. Another key component is We want to know if they have acquired fundamental cooking skills. So quickly, let's break this down as we give an answer to it. What is an outcome again? I repeat, major three indices. You know them by now. A process is task and activities, okay? Formative is something, it's an evaluation that allows you to change something before implementation. This question has nothing to do with implementation of anything, okay? It is asking you that we are considering a knowledge shift, all right? Skill acquisition, remember, an impact objective has three components. Number one, learning. Number two, behavioral. And number three, environmental. So in this question, we are asking you, have acquired cooking skills that has to do with learning. What have they learned about cooking skills? Okay. We want to assess their level of skill acquisition. All right. So that should be an impact evaluation. Okay. Thank you. And of course, as we go on here, during a health education program, questions about whether the health participants like the instructional materials and if instructors find them easy to use are examples of what type of evaluation. So remember here, I've marked everything as X, so we need to decide which one is it. Number one, it is not outcome. The three indices have not been mentioned at all. So do away with that quickly. Number two, impact. We are not talking about knowledge here. So do away with that quickly. Now we are left with summative and process. All right. So during an health education program, questions whether participants like the instructional materials and if instructors find them easy to use are examples of what? So basically, we are asking participants if they like the instructional materials and if they found them helpful. So it means that the implementation has been done. You cannot ask participants in a planning phase, oh, do you like the materials, or is the program useful? It has not even been done yet. All right. So we are talking about we have done the implementation. We have done it. It has been done. So now we are trying to evaluate the process that has been implemented, and that will be a process evaluation. That will be a process evaluation. All right. So my dear friends, we come to the end of objectives and evaluation. I hope you have learned something. I hope you are able to take down some notes. Tomorrow I will share this tonight on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, comment, share with your friends taking the exam. And not just the exam. This can potentially help as many public health graduate students and even undergrads in the future. So please, these are some of the tricks that could potentially help you in the exam coming forth this month. So I hope your knowledge level has increased a little, as mine has also increased. And until the very next time, see you and have a wonderful night.